so much, Dr. Ibrahim. Thank you so much for the organizing and scientific committee for the invitation. I'll try to make it light and short. I know after 2 days of heavy material and after lunch, last session of the day, so hopefully it will be just to the point. The patient blood management from the perspective of the National Guard experience, what we have done. I have no disclosure to say. Okay, the patient blood management is an exciting topic, very rewarding. But however, to get to an agreement, what does it mean? People from the expert groups from different continents, from North America, Europe, and Australia, they had to sit together and come up with a definition. What does it mean? So this was in 2022, just recently. So what they agreed on that the patient blood management should be patient-centered, based on the patient benefit, systematic evidence-based approach to improve the patient outcome by managing and preserving the patient's own blood, just to avoid any unnecessary transfusions, while promoting the patient safety. So once you are avoiding the transfusion, you're going to preserve the patient safety, and that is done, should be done in a timely manner, with the cooperation from different teams involved, and also based on evidence-based medicine. That would be done by the 3 pillars of the patient blood management, and they are the screening, diagnosis, and appropriately treating anemia preoperatively. Also minimizing the surgical procedure and iatrogenic unnecessary anemia and blood losses, and managing the coagulopathic bleeding throughout the treatment. Also supporting the patient while during the treatment process, inpatient or outpatient. So they usually say a good presentation, it should be told as a story, so I'll try to tell it as a story. So let's say between the year 2018 and 2020, I was in the National Guard Hospital. I was running the transfusion medicine services. So I was the only doctor there running the service. Unfortunately, it's a big service and you don't have time to do everything. So just to let you imagine how busy it is, so we have more than 90,000 transfusion per year. We have more than 2,000 apheresis procedure per year, including the stem cell collection, including apheresis, therapeutic apheresis, including the CAR-T, including just recently we started the gene therapy. All these procedures are done, also RBC exchange, therapeutic phlebotomy, all these done in the therapeutic phlebotomy unit. Also the women hospital, we have more than 8,000, nearly 9,000 delivery per year. So this is the new building. So this is the women hospital and children hospital and oncology hematology hospital. These are the numbers from the last years. So we have 450 stem cell transplant between adult and pediatric. We have 175 kidney transplant. We have more than 50,000 visits to the cardiac center, including 900 operation and 4,000 catheterization. These are the numbers on the right. I had to disclose some of the numbers. So just to let you imagine, this is the numbers, the inventory numbers from today. To cover the weekend, Sunday, we have to have at least 900 units of platelet, and this is our usual RBC. So on 900 is the platelet, and these are the red cells. So at that time, I started hearing about the patient blood management, and I thought I should do something because there are so many unnecessary requests. One of the things that I've done is when everything is stable, it's not Eid, Ramadan, or these kind of things, I go to the blood bank and say, look, we're gonna stick to the rules. So let's target 70 hemoglobin, platelet of 20. The 50 is for the procedure, 20 is, if patient is symptomatic, 10 or less is for post-bone marrow transplant and patient on chemotherapy. So I end up by receiving, let's say, 70 to 80 calls per day. Most of those, not about saying, no, I'm not going to transfuse. Most of those were about education. Because at that time I thought, oh, if you educate the people who are usually making the request, they're going to stop requesting. I know that you have to start with education for the department, but unfortunately at that time it was so busy surface and I couldn't do that. So what happened next? Between the year 2020 and 2022, I went for the second fellowship in Canada. It was covering the transfusion surface, and as you can see, it was in 2020. So I encountered the COVID in Saudi, and we had to deal with that, with the shortage of blood supply. And also, when I went to Canada, it was the same scenario. So shortage of blood supply, and also they had curfew at that time, on and off, not like ours. It was very strict. But anyway, shortage of blood supply, and each unit means an important value to be transfused or approved. So one of the institute that I met there was the ORBCON. So it's the Ontario Regional Blood Coordinating Network. They have many initiatives, including their book, The Bloody Easy. They have the Transfuse Wisely. Also, they have the On Track. So On Track, it's the Ontario Transfusion Coordinating. So it is a group of nurses, pharmacists, about 20, the team is about 20 people. They cover about 25 to, let's say, 30 hospitals. All the elective surgery, orthopedic, OB-GYN, all the procedure that can be delayed, it has to go through that group to approve it and improve the anemia for the patient. So at that time, I thought, oh, this is how it should be done. So I sat with them, I learned their technique, I learned their strategy, and what the algorithm that they do, the medication they recommend, and how it is done there. By the way, it was established in 2002. So I learned from them that it's not about only saving the blood and resources. It is also about avoiding the side effect, just like developing of unnecessary antibodies. Also, how to deal with patients with rare blood groups. For example, so patient with rare blood group who's coming with anemia, and instead of looking for blood groups, which is rare, it's better you start with correcting the anemia so that you don't need the transfusion. Also, some of the people we met there, or some of the groups, was the Jehovah's Witnesses, which is a group of people they don't agree as their religious belief to accept any transfusions, with different variation among them. So anyway, I came back from the scholarship, and I met Dr. Sibai again. Sorry, I forgot to say Dr. Sibai. So he's the consultant in anesthesia. He's the head of the organ transplant in the hospital. He's one of our heroes in the National Guard. Very quiet, doesn't talk a lot, but he does a lot. So I came back. Dr. Sibai, by the way, is one of the people who, so in between 2018 and 2020, we used to sit with the organ transplant team, including the liver transplant, and he was there. We had a very big argument about, they wanted to do a liver transplant to a hemophilia patient with inhibitor. So it was a very tough decision, and the procedure was canceled. So anyway, I came back, and I found out that Dr. Sibai already started the patient blood management. So I owe all the credit to him. So just a few months before I came back, the decision to establish the patient blood management was decided by the medical services. And this is the timeline. So just to let you know, so mid-2022, the decision was made by the medical services. After that, the paperwork, so the creation of the protocol, the creation of the policy, they sat together and they made the dashboard, the website, and we came to the most important part, which is agreement and teaching or education. So you can see from April 2023, so the sitting with chairman of ICU to come to an agreement and education of the team. After that, the same thing done with the pediatric department, the same thing done with the ICU department, same thing done with the OB-GYN department, and also with the adult hematology and oncology department. So it's all about the teaching. So instead of starting with resident and fellows, you start with the top of the pyramid. So you talk to them and explain to them the goals, what policy and paper you're relying on, and then after convincing them, we come to an agreement and we start with the education. We started also the dashboard, we started the screensaver, and also this is a very important milestone which was done in March 24. We activated the BIST care, or the information system of the hospital, for the pre-operative anemia management clinic run by the adult hematology. So any patient who's scheduled for operation, they have to go through this clinic to correct their anemia before the operation. So the structure, so the patient blood management program is run by the medical services, and the blood transfusion committee is overseeing the whole process. It includes the blood bank, different partners, so blood bank, the business intelligence, we have the quality, the group of department and sections working together so that we come to the best practice. We put our vision and mission, but that was not enough, because we need to spread it, and we need that all the people know it, and they take it as their own goal and their own mission and vision. So we started screensavers on the computer. So whenever there's a screensaver, every 2-3 minutes, there is the mission, vision, the aim, what are we aiming for. Also, we have the second initiative, why give 2 when 1 will do. So even if the patient is anemic, 2 units of RBC is not required, not necessary. Just give the first unit, and then you can follow up with the second unit if it's required. Also, the protocol of the patient blood management. So it was put on the hospital website, was spread to all the department, and we encourage all the head and chairman of the department to train their staff on it. This is the algorithm to treating the anemia before the operation. So the cut-off, so we have to categorize the patient. Is it minor bleeding, risk surgery, moderate or high? Cut-off is 500. And then after that, is it an urgent, within less than 1 month or more than 1 month? And based on that, we can decide, should we give the oral or intravenous, or we start with the oral and intravenous later, iron replacement. So this is the website. This is the website, the home website for the National Guard. If you scroll down, you will find the main links on the right-hand side, and you can see the patient blood management on that in that location. If you click on that, you're gonna see as we discussed, the pillars, the structure of the program, the collaborating team, and also the dashboard, and what are also the educational material. So these are as we discussed, the pillars of the program, the benefit of the program, and the structure of the program. These are the KPIs of the patient blood management. If you look at the left-hand side, the percentage of single unit of transfusion, of all transfusion. What is the percentage of surgical patient with RBC transfusion versus non-transfused. After that, how many red cell transfusion per 100 admission, and red cell transfusion per 100 inpatient days. On the right-hand side, so the pre-transfusion threshold, anemia management, and improve outcome, it is just like an emphasis and highlighting the cut-off, the 70 for hemoglobin, 50 for the platelet, and 1.7 for the INR before giving FFP. We said the teams or the stakeholders or our partners. So these are, in the purple color are the clinical teams. We can see the supportive with the blue colors, and combination of all the people who are cooperating to come up with this program. And as we said, on the main page of the patient blood management, there is the dashboard, which is a very nice tool that usually when you flick, you come up with numbers and figures that you like to discuss and see. So for example, we can see how many unit transfused, so RBC, FFP, or platelet, transfused over the month. This was in 2021, 22. Also, we can relate that and follow that based on departments, so internal medicine, obstetric, adult hematology, and neonatology, so that based on how many units of RBC were transfused. Some people argue that neonatology, it's not fair that they are included in this because usually they made their order by mills, so they're out of the equation. Also, the average of pre-transfusion hemoglobin level before ordering the red cells. So we can see 81 up to 85 and then up and down over the months. If you go further, so that was an overview. If you want detailed information, we can follow that. So red cell, blood product, and each month how many units were transfused, and we can follow that by department, by ward, and even by physician name. So we can know which physician was ordering most of the red cells. The same thing for the plasma, the same thing for the platelet. We can also get the average hemoglobin. This is very useful because also by physician, we know who is following the policy and who's not. Also for the platelet, same thing, by department, by ward, and by physician. This is the INR before giving FFP. This is the hemoglobin level prior to red cell transfusion. This is the platelet count prior to platelet transfusion. And also, as you can see, by physician, by ward. And this is going back to the program structure. This is the job of the blood transfusion committee. So usually when there is a ward or section or department who are not following the policy, what we do is in the blood transfusion committee, which is run quarterly, we sit with that department and we, without highlighting names, we say, department so-and-so, they're doing great, and this department, you're not following or you're consuming so much RBC, which is not according to the policy or recommendation. The next step is emailing the doctor who's ordering the most of the unit, which is outside of the guideline. After that, if the doctor is not following or not complying, we email the chairman and we ask him to deal with that doctor that please follow the recommendation. So these are some of the slides Dr. Sibai shared with me, and I thought it should be highlighted. So the blood transfusion versus the liver transplantation between the 2017 and 2023. So as we said, the second pillar of the patient blood management was the surgical procedure. So you have to look for updated procedure, which should be with less risk of bleeding, with high preservation of blood. Stop preoperative transfusion because it's more associated with the risk of bleeding. The decision for blood product, it should be done by senior staff. Follow the protocol, the emphasis on using cell saver, fibrogen concentrate, PCC, and also the ROTAM machine. And also treating anemia and lowering the threshold of anemia after the procedure. So tremendously and impressively, you can see between 2017 and 2023, the red cell per procedure, transfusion was almost 9. It dropped down to 2.3 per procedure. For the FFP, it dropped from 5 FFP to 0.5. For the platelet, from over 10 units, that's 1.5 dose to almost half a dose of platelet. And for the cryo, it went down from 25 units to nearly 0. Based on that, if you look at the percentage of liver transplant with 0 transfusion, in 2023 we had 1/3 of the liver transplant without a single transfusion of any blood product. Also, the liver transplant with 2 or less blood RBC, it was almost 2/3, almost 70% of the procedures. And the average cost for liver recipient, it was in 2017, it was almost 55,000. It went down almost to 6,000 riyal. And the estimate overall saving, comparing 23 to 17, it was almost 12.5 million riyal. And thank you so much. That's just a quick review. I think the program is still early to judge, and we're still in the first phase of educating and changing the mindset of people. So maybe in next year it will be showing better numbers. Thank you.